Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here. For those that have joined over the past few months, welcome back. And for those that are with us for the first time, we're so glad you're here. In our Getting Unstuck series, we're digging into the beliefs that are holding us back, beliefs that typically go back to something that happened in our childhood. Those beliefs are made up of energy that gets trapped in our bodies and we don't even realize it. Except that over time, it really keeps us from moving forward in some aspect of our lives. Which brings us to introducing or reintroducing you to one of our favorite modern mystics, Lizzi Cutler. Lizzi has created a life-changing technique called energy editing that is going to move those beliefs right on out.
Over time, those beliefs not only became lodged within you, they also turned into fears. Lizzi has identified the most common fears that are holding us back, and in some cases, even paralyzing us. This week, we're focusing on the fear of being broken, that there's something wrong with you. It's usually hard to admit that you even have this feeling, yet it's a big one that holds many of us back. You are not broken, and we're going to dig deep in to clear that out. It's time to feel the wholeness and the power of who you are.
Before we get going, we want to encourage you to use chat to either respond to what we're doing or ask any questions. We'll be looking at that throughout the session, and we're recording this. So for those that couldn't make it, and we know there's a bunch of you, hi, or if you'd like to watch it again, it will be available later today. I'll be sending it out. So let's get going. Hi, Lizzi.
Hey, Lizzi.
Hi, everybody. So happy to be here.
Oh, we're so glad you're here as well. This is episode number 3, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's been so fun.
Yeah, so for those that were with us last month or who watched the taping where we covered the fear of being manipulated, how are you doing since that edit? And did anything bubble up for you after that session? You can either unmute yourself or let us know via chat.
Sometimes I notice with these sessions, as we're going through, you might notice memories that come up after we've done the edit. So try to just be aware of what's coming up, and there's nothing you need to do about it. As we mentioned last time, I'm just reminding you, there's nothing for you to do. It's already clear. It's just coming up as like a reminder on its way out.
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of things came up from my childhood, more and more that I am remembering. I think once you get to a certain period in your adulthood, you forget so much of those moments in your life. And I think when you take a minute and start to do those little inventories, so many things pop up that you have completely thought about. So for me, it's just being aware of those, that they can kind of almost come up like little weeds that can come back. And just noticing them and identifying them and then plucking them out before they have time to grow back.
Exactly. Yeah. And knowing that they're on their way out. So after we've done the edit, it's literally the weeds already been pulled. It's like the wind is now blowing it away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then as a refresher for those and for some that have not been on before, can we talk about what an energy edit is?
Yep, totally. So if you think about when we're little people, we don't know exactly how to discern fact from fiction or exaggeration from the adults around us. And so we program in these things that we're told as if they're facts, like you have to work really, really hard if you want to have a good living, or well, be careful because once you make a lot of money, everybody's going to want a handout, right? We hear these things from adults and we don't know that it's not a fact across the board. And so we program it in our little alarm system as if it's a fact, it's something to be aware of. And this is how anxieties crop up and all of the sort of trepidation that we experience as adults. So in this work that we're doing, we're trying to match up what we say we want with what we believe to be true about the world, because we know that the universe is responding to what we believe and vibrate on, not what we're saying. So by doing these edits, it's like we're weeding out, as we were saying, we're weeding out the old thoughts that were put in there that our conscious mind knows to be untrue, and our subconscious mind just needs to get on track.
Yeah, and there's so many of them. I mean, even when we just like we were talking about, like what we did with fear of being manipulated, and there may have been those initial ones that came up. I know for me, it was like, for days and a week after, I would wake up. For me, it's like in the morning where I feel and remember that they're coming up, and then they're releasing, they're going away. Yeah. So let's talk about then this week and fear of being broken. And what do we mean by that?
So if I had a magic wand, the way that I normally start working with people one-on-one is I will ask you, if I were your fairy godmother and I showed up with my magic wand, what are 3 things that you would want to change about your current existence? If you have one thing that's sort of driving you nuts, one thing that you want us to focus on, that's sort of the energy that we need and that we're looking for in order to release it. So we're looking to figure out, what is it that your trigger is? Where is it that you're telling yourself you're not blank enough? It's always some version of not enoughness. And then we start digging into the layers deeper than that. So the fear of being broken is usually where we're telling ourselves something that we need to change in order to get to all the things at the end of the rainbow. And in that spirit, if we can kind of bring up talking about the word healer, and that I need to be healed in order to be able to attract the things that I want, this is a really meaty topic. So if you thought about, and actually let's just throw that in the chat. So those of you that are here and that are present, those of you listening at home, just think about it. If I said to you, what are the 3 things you would want to change about yourself? If you can throw 1 or 2 in the chat, what is something, if it's like your relationship with money, your relationship with, in relationships, in romantic relationships, or parents, or your career goals not quite getting there, what's something that you would want to change right here in the hour? If I were like, I'm going to do a magic spell, and after I do this magic spell, this is all going to go away and it's all going to come together in line. Throw in the chat what you would want to change. And Robin and Karen, I'm going to kind of put you guys on the spot too here.
Yeah. I mean, I'll start. I mean, I think you brought up relationship with money, and I feel like that would be something that I'd want to change in terms of feeling like there's not enough. There's not enough coming, it's that not enoughness in relation to money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. We have on here, Carolyn said more self-compassion, which I think all of us have had moments where we are really good at beating ourselves down in ways that we wouldn't even do to our worst enemy. Issy, this is awesome. Not caring what other people think about me, not caring what my body looks like. Yes. Can't imagine a single person who hasn't had a moment with a body image issue. Wendy, definitely relationship with money, feeling of inadequacy. Noelle, decrease anxiety and increase boldness. Belen, I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Sorry. Healthier in my body weight. Yeah, totally. All right, Karen, you're up.
No, I was just thinking that a lot of this is all about worthiness, right? The one that came from me too was, and I don't know where this came from, but it's confidence in decision-making, like confidence that I am making the right choice, confidence that I know what is right for myself, and I'm willing to stand up for that. I think that's a big one for me.
Yeah. So Karen, that one usually shows up in edits as trusting my inner self. Right? Because we'll know something that we want to do, and then we'll usually ask 10 people to see if they're in agreement. And that in particular, and I'm going to actually make a note of this because we could do a whole episode on that. Well, what I want to talk about now is, this is hilarious. Denise, I just need to read this out. Always escaping from myself through addiction or distraction with work or anything. What the hell am I running from? Amen, sister.
Yeah.
We're running from. So here's the double bind here. We've talked about double binds in past episodes. I'm going to give you the quick, 10-second version of it. When we say that we want something, and money is usually an easy one to sort of think about, we want a healthy relationship with money, which secretly means I want money to really easily just pour into my lap and be able to manage it perfectly. Right? None of us are like, oh, there's so much money. What am I going to, right? Like it's always, I want more of. We're pushing on one side of the door that's saying, I don't have enough. So what I have right now isn't adequate for where I want to be. And that goes for every not enoughness that was just listed. That's on my body's not healthy enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not working hard enough. Fear of deadlines. I'm not working fast enough. I care too much about what other people think. I'm not compassionate enough. I'm not enough on that side. On the flip side of that door, You're pushing with equal and opposite force of what happens if I get it? The panic in the disco of what if I actually get all of this and then what? And for most of us, if I'm saying this to you and we're just like out chatting at a luncheon and I say, you're afraid of having too much money, Robin, your response to me would be, oh no, I know exactly where I'm going to spend it and how I'm going to spend it and where I'm going to gift it away and all the fun I'm going to have once we have that money. And all of you, if I said, okay, tomorrow morning, you're going to wake up at your dream weight and your body's going to feel healthy and strong and vibrant and amazing. And your joints are going to feel supple and delicious and good. You would say, yeah, I'm all in 100%. I'm jumping right in. On the flip side of that, the double bind is, how do I maintain it?
Yep. Yeah.
What if it gets taken away after I have it? Then how bad is that going to suck? I'd rather not have it than have it and have it be taken away. Right. And so by pushing on equal and opposite sides with equal force, physics tells us that's when we stay stuck. Nothing can move when we're in both sides of it. So now we get into the fear of being broken and the double bind of that. So if you could write down in the chat what it would feel like to clear and to shift the not enoughness side of it, what would it feel like to be in a super healthy body, to not be afraid of deadlines, to not have to distract yourself with anything other than showing up for yourself? What would it feel like to be free from that? Yeah, Issy, free. Exactly.
Free. I mean, free, that's exactly Issy. I was going to say freedom. And like, you can just like, I can just like feel that. You can feel what that is. It's just,
it's spacious and it's roomy. And it's expensive and the weight's lifted. Yeah. The lightness. Yeah. Right. So do you guys all feel that viscerally? Can you feel that vibration? Right. You can feel the difference between, oh, I'm never going to get there. The like heavy weighed downness of that versus the lightness of, oh, I can totally be myself and be here. Yes. Empowerment is a great word. Thanks, Denise. Totally. Okay. So here's the jam here. When we are afraid that we are broken, we're also afraid of being empowered, of being free, of being limitless, of being totally peaceful. And without me throwing anything out here right now, if you could also throw in the chat, what is it that resonates the most with you on the fear of being unbroken, the fear of being fixed, the fear of being whole? What is there in there? The fear of being whole. Try not to think
that it won't, that it won't last. I think you said that, like, that really for sure is something.
It reminds me of that saying from Brene Brown that, people are most afraid of joy because when they finally get there and they're leaning into joy and feeling it, that looking at that newborn baby, that something can happen to take that.
Known. Yeah. I want something else. Yeah.
So I want something else is a really big one, right? Just like, once I have 100 million, because the lotto gives it to me, is that not going to be enough? And then I'm going to need more, right? Once I lose 5 pounds, is it really that I'll feel better when I lose 10? And the answer is yes, because you're practicing the vibration of, I'll be happy when. And as long as we're in the vibration of, oh, it'll feel so good when, then when you get there, it will feel so good when, because the universe is just saying yes to that vibration. It's not saying yes to the tangible thing that we think we're creating. It's saying yes to the vibration we're vibrating on. Right. So throw a yes in the chat. If you know those people who, no matter what's happening in their life, it's just really hard. Things are just really hard right now. My life is just chaotic right now. And as soon as this is fixed, then this will all be better, but I just need to get through this thing. Yes, 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 yes. All the yeses. That is because when you practice the vibration of, I'll be happy when, you will be happy when. And it's always pushing it out into the future. I actually played the lotto yesterday because it's at like 853.
Yeah.
And Robin and I are obsessed with this.
We are.
This morning, I actually made a recording of not what it will feel like when I win the lotto, but like a year after I've won the lotto.
I love that, Lizzie.
I almost texted you this, but I knew I was going to see you today. So like just waking up on an average Friday when you have 400 million at your access, and You can do whatever you want with it. And like the house is already bought and built and the trips have already been planned and all this stuff. And it's just a normal Friday.
Yes.
We have all of that. It's already taken care of. It's done. Right? Someone said to me the other day, just because the sun isn't in your eyes doesn't mean it's not shining behind the cloud. It's already done. The sun is already shining.
Right.
It's just not hitting you in the eyeballs. It's still there.
Mhm.
So one example that I love that I want to bring up in this session, and I don't have the exact details, and if you Google it, I'm sure it's a little bit different, but just for the sake of what our point is, here it is. Scientists took a female and a male lab rat, and they would feed them consistently and then starve them to near death. And they did that cycle with these rats 4 or 5 times. So they would feed them for weeks and then nearly starve them. And then they fed them consistently for months and months and months, and then they bred them. And 4 or 5 generations later, those next generation animals had scarcity of food issues. If there was food out, they had to eat all of the food to the point where they would be sick. And they had never been starved in their entire lives, but it was in their DNA. And so this is what I think is so critical in knowing around the fear of being broken at a very basic human level in our animal brain. If we are afraid of something going wrong, we think then we're on alert. We're on high alert and we are ready to jump into action as we need to. And the rug's not going to get pulled out from under us. And so we're always on guard. That's a really awesome place to be when you're cave people. And if you're alone, you're going to be the one that's plucked off by an animal, right? You need that skill.
Right.
The problem is, like, if you think about even 3 or 4 generations before you, life was hard. I mean, life is hard now for different reasons. And I'm not saying anybody's life is like with a silver spoon, but life was hard not that many generations ago. And we inherited a lot of that generational trauma, exactly, Denise, to your point, that we're working with now. So this idea that we will be better when is what's keeping us in that constant loop of a little off our game and not creating what we actually want. So I'm going to just take a second for that to sink in. Throw in the chat if you have any questions. And Robin and Karen, did I miss anything?
No, I think one of the things we talked about even before we started was the concept of broken, because I think that was something that was a little bit of a reach for me, because some of us might not feel broken, but we might feel not whole, or we might feel like things are holding us back. So can you just talk about how you define being broken and how we can look at that as we're kind of searching back into our younger childhood moments for those triggers that's started?
Yep. So when we talk about being broken, I actually like that point, that if we give it a little bit of a deeper context, where it could be one of these things is not like the other, right? When you're in a group of people and you feel like the odd man out, or you feel like you might be in the inner circle of your peers, but it feels like you're watching from somewhere else because you just don't fit in the right way. Yes. Or it feels like things are really easy for everybody, but for you, you have to try 200 times harder than anybody else to do the same thing.
Yeah.
That's that piece of us, that's that inner child in us that's telling us there's a flaw here that needs to be masked, covered. You got to work harder to try to make sure that no one figures this out. And that's the piece that we want to get to. That's the brokenness that we're telling ourselves about.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times as people are going to get back into the energy of what that is, because that's what we'll do in a second, is really, this could come from other peers when you were younger. It could come from a teacher saying something to you. It could come from a parent or another, maybe older aunt, uncle, sibling, that kind of thing. So just keep that in mind as you are channeling that frequency of that fear of being broken. And I know I brought this up in the last few times we've done this, but I'll just bring it up again because it helps remind myself to, when we're talking about that energy and getting into it, think of your most recent time that you felt left out, that you felt like you were on the outskirts of a circle, or someone told you flat out, like, you don't belong. Think about what that most recent time for you, whether it was in the last few years, maybe it was 10 years ago, maybe it was high school. and sit with that energy for a moment, because you're going to be surprised at what comes up even earlier, because once you're in that energy, the other stuff starts to come up. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
Good
Yeah.
one. Good point. Yeah.
So as we go through this, because we're going to do this actual edit right now, we're going to delete it from your programming in just a second. When I'm doing an edit with you, I want you to imagine the same way that we just did, where you can connect to the vibration of being sort of heavy and weighed down and not enough versus the vibrational difference of being free. You can feel that frequency difference. What we're trying to do in these edits is get your conscious brain to be able to see what's running in your subconscious vibration. And it's because we've been doing that since we were little people that it's so hard to see now as an adult from the inside. So what we're doing is your conscious adult thinking brain is going to think up this fear that I'm going to give you in a second. And as I'm going, we're going to ask that you sort of sift through the different memories that come up in your life. And imagine like a movie screen out in front of you and just watch as different little vignettes kind of come through and play out as memories from your life in the past. And I'll walk you back through everything. And as you're doing that, your subconscious mind is going to say, "Ooh, I have more for you," and start playing all these other memories for you. And it's going to allow you to connect those dots. And as we do that, I'm doing energy work within the group to help push that out. So it's like I'm at the bottom of the soil, pushing the weed out from the bottom up while you're highlighting where the weed is for me. Here's the magic here. If you're sitting there thinking this isn't working for me and nothing is coming up, I promise you it's working. We can do deeper work to get in there deeper, but you can't screw this up. You can't do it wrong. You can't mess it up. So just whatever images come up are exactly what's supposed to come up. I'm going to keep talking to you, and you don't have to respond. You can just sit back and close your eyes and let me guide you. And just know that everything coming up is what's supposed to, and just set the intention that it's working exactly as it's designed to work. Any questions before we jump in? Okay, great. All right. So you are going to take your dominant hand, and I'm a righty, and you're going to place your dominant hand just at your solar plexus. So my rib cage is splitting here. Your hand is going to rest right above it. So Rob or Karen, a little lower. Yep, there you go. And with your eyes closed, sitting back in your chair, I want you to lean into the vibration, the fear, I am broken. Fear, I'm broken. Notice what comes up just in recent weeks, months, years. Fear, I am broken. Fear that that thing I so deeply want and long for and crave is just not happening for me because I just can't figure out that one thing. Fear, I am broken. Go back a decade. Just notice what's coming up for you in here. Go back another decade, maybe even more. Ask to see all the vibrational matches with the fear I am broken. Stay in there and ask to go back to being a young child. Maybe junior high, elementary school. Ask to see the origin point. Ask to see where this all came from, where it all started. And now set the intention to let it go. Be willing to let it go. You don't have to know how, you don't have to know what's going to come. Just set the intention to let it go. Notice where you feel it moving out of your body. Notice if you feel any pressure, any tension anywhere in your physical body. Take a big, full, deep breath in. And exhale, let that all go. Good. Take a moment here, grab a sip of water and throw in the chat what came up for you. The more vulnerable you can be, obviously, the better. And Karen and Robin, again, I'm going to put you guys on the spot to share what came up. But the rest of you that are in here, think about really setting the intention to let it shake off of you. Know that we're all in this together and we're all feeling big things. Even if your thing doesn't feel very big, share it, because sometimes it helps us all hear like, oh my gosh, that piece for me too. Rob, what came up for you in there?
That was deep. That was really, and so much came up that I am really surprised by, that I never associated with that energy, honestly, even as an adult. So for me, it even started with some of my dearest friends participating in something where I wasn't comfortable and feeling left out, even then, with people that I do trust and love. And then it went back to, for me in high school, not making certain teams and certain clubs and things like that, which again, I have not thought about in so long. What I was really shocked about is where it started and where it took me to was actually, I think I was about 7 or 8 years old. I was living in New York, where I grew up in Brooklyn. And I was raised by, my mom was Catholic, my dad was Jewish. And no one was very religious, but they felt this need to expose me to both religions at an earlier age, so that either I could choose if I wanted to do one, or at least I had the knowledge of both. And I could be, and I could take it from there. So I started going to Sunday school, for Hebrew school and Catholicism, and I very much loved my Hebrew school more than I loved going to church and Catholicism. And so I remember expressing that, and there was a warmth there that I loved. Well, my parents, I still don't understand to this day, but at the time they were sending me to a conservative temple, where, if you are familiar with the Jewish religion, there's Reform, conservative, Orthodox. And really, if I was going to a Reform temple, I'm sure this wouldn't have happened. But in the conservative temple, they told me, we were about to graduate from that year, and we were going to do some sort of ceremony of some sort. And they just pulled me aside and they said, just so you know, you'll never really be Jewish until your mom converts to Judaism fully. And she has to go through this whole process and then have a mikvah and all this. And I was so devastated because I loved this place. It felt very safe and loving until that moment.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home, being hysterical. And I honestly haven't thought about that in really decades and decades, 40 years. And I was so devastated. Now, it has not impacted how I feel. I very much identify as being Jewish. So that didn't stop, but that took a while.
Remind me again, how old were you when all that happened?
I think I was about 8.
Okay. So this is actually a perfect example. So thank you so much for sharing that. That's a big matzo ball.
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So at 8 years old, those of you that have been around kids, and I didn't really understand ages until my sister had kids and I could see like, what does an 8-year-old look like and what are they processing and that kind of thing. An 8-year-old's a little kid. It's a little person. And to think they've only been on the planet for 8 years and they're only gathering information for 8 years. And those adults saying that to you, we're probably thinking she should know this, thinking that it's going through the filters of like a 30-something-year-old brain.
Yeah.
But as an 8-year-old, the tools that you have in that moment are something must be broken. This feels humiliating, horrifying, rejecting, miserable, right? Like all the emotions that go with that. I don't want to ever experience this from happening again. So I'm going to put a little alarm system here, a little booby trap. So if I just get a little too far into these woods, that alarm is going to go up and I'm going to go into fight or flight and run the other way. So anytime you think about sort of joining the group or speaking out or being free to just sort of like enjoy and be what you want to be, that little alarm is going to trip in a way to protect you. So it was actually brilliant of that 8-year-old to program in the fear of being broken, because up until that point, all you knew was I can be whatever I want to be. Maybe it's Catholicism, maybe it's Judaism, maybe it's something different as I move forward.
Yeah.
But I can be whatever I want to be. You didn't know to anticipate it. And that's where anxiety comes in. Anxiety is our little inner child person protecting us from what might happen in the future that we aren't, quote, smart enough to anticipate. And so like, that's a genius thing for your 8-year-old to do.
It's crazy. Yeah. And the literal part was that I decided that and really I consider myself spiritual and not religious in general. I just identify as to what I was brought up in with traditions, really. That's it. But to your point, it made me reject a lot at first, but you're right. I can't believe what that experience then did in all these other experiences and I know there's many more that just bubbled up in those few minutes when we sat there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for helping explain some of that and also help explain what was potentially that person was thinking. That actually I didn't think about it that way.
I heard a quote the other day, because what's fascinating is that as we've been planning this session, 2 weeks ago, I hurt my back and I've been saying to my uncle, who's a neurosurgeon, I feel like I'm broken. Like my body feels broken. My back feels broken. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is real coincidental.
I mean,
you gotta watch those things. I hear people say, oh, I'm dying a slow death here. Right. I'm like, no.
Delete.
Yeah. Those expressions. I want to highlight my mom, Loanne. Just put in, I went back to my early childhood as a military child, not being allowed to play with non-commissioned officers' children.
wow.
I was a child of a commissioned officer in all the neighborhoods we lived in. Yeah. Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wait. So you were only allowed to play with certain children, but none of those children live near you. So you weren't
I'm
allowed
going to unmute. Yeah. I'll unmute.
Oh my gosh. And so all the non-commissioned officers' kids were playing together and you weren't allowed to play with them.
Wow.
I'm trying to unmute Loanne, but I'm not able to.
Can you unmute, Mom?
That's
There she
exactly
is.
right. Yes.
That is really intense.
It's an invisible fence
Wow.
around me.
That you didn't ask to be put there
No.
or asked to have, right?
Mhm.
So that vibration of me and them, right? I'm alone and they are all together.
Mhm.
If you go under, and you guys can throw in the chat, Luann, if you'll just answer like the first word that comes up with for these. So in the fear of being broken and all of that, the longing to be with those other kids, and the longing, I mean, would assume it's just to be with any kids, right? At that stage, it's just, I want to play with somebody.
Mhm.
Did it feel like those other kids knew that you couldn't play with them? Did they even know that you were there?
I don't think so. I don't think they knew. I think because I didn't say, of course, I can't play with you. I didn't say that.
Hmm.
Were you invited to play with them?
Sometimes, but
And
I
what-
always said I had something else I had to go to.
Uh-huh. Wow. Wow, that is fascinating. So what's happening? This is actually really also interesting in the generational trauma of it all. As early human beings, it was not safe to be alone, right? Especially as women or as young girls, it wasn't safe for anybody to be off by themselves, like just the elements and animals and everything. It wasn't safe to be alone. But also as women and young girls, the reason that we pack together at a young age, at like 5, 6, 7, that like you're always holding your best friend's hand or you always want to be in the clique, is because the animal brain in us tells us you are less likely to be killed if you are in the pack than the one stray alone where the bobcat is going to come and eat you alive. Right. And so our animal brain is saying, always be afraid of being alone, because being alone is one step away from not surviving. And our animal brain is always going to try to reach us to survival. So that fear that we're feeling in us is very, very real. That feeling of being alone and that desperation to change it and fix it is very visceral and very real in our animal reptilian brain. So most of these things, the fear of not enoughness, if we keep digging and keep digging and keep digging, the root that most of us get to is, then I'll be alone.
Mhm.
And that's sort of like, period, close the book, cancel.
May I just add that I just thought of something, it might be relevant to other people,
Yeah.
but I was also sent to a Catholic school and nobody in any of the neighborhoods went to Catholic school.
Wow, so you were really
Yeah.
isolated
Yeah.
from that community. Yeah.
So that isolation, that differentiation is a little, I mean, that can be really traumatic, really traumatic.
You moved around a lot, right? As a
25 times, yes.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
Yeah.
so each time that happened,
Mhm.
that wall that went up, there wasn't even an opportunity the next place that you went to connect with somebody else.
Right.
Wow.
Very amazing, interesting information for me at this stage of 82
Well,
years old.
And it helps you've created such stability now for yourself and for your family. Like you created such a stable, safe home, and that makes a lot of sense.
That's why family is so important to me.
Yes. Oh,
Mhm.
wow.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Children, for people who don't know. So she found a lot of other people to keep around her later in life. So
Oh,
she
But
was
it makes sense why that was so important now. Understand. Yeah.
Yeah, my own choice, my own family became my world because I didn't have it as a child.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. Wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Karen, what came up for you in there?
not anything as usual, not anything that I expected. But I have a little twist at the end that I hope can help some other people too. For me, it was going back to what I was saying before about this confidence in decisions. And I kind of, as you were doing your talk, I kind of went back, and it wasn't going like 5-year, 10-year, whatever back, but I really kind of went, I saw immediately when that was in my life that I feel like that might have shifted for me. My mom's on the call, so, but I can share that I felt like I had really a very stable, strong childhood, in many ways. I was the oldest of the 6 kids, but I felt, very nurtured, very safe most of the time, until I got to that age of about 13, I think, when I was leaning into my own decisions and I always found it really hard to make decisions. I always felt extremely pressured, extremely fearful that I was going to make the wrong one. But I remember coming out of Catholic school, my parents really wanted me to go to an all-girl Catholic school. And by the time I got to 8th grade, I was pretty much done with Catholic school. I wanted to go to the public school. So they allowed me to make that decision. And I did go to the public school. And I had a tough time in that experience. The very first day that I walked in, I was identified by some girls, and I was bullied like for the first couple weeks that I was there. And so as I was thinking about that, like that having such an impact on a major decision and making me wonder, did I make the right decision? And then thereby I started to move forward and looking at so many of the other decisions, big decisions that I made. I got married very young, and that was not the right relationship for me. And that was not another not good decision. And so I think it can be really easy for people when they identify those things to say, oh my gosh, maybe I am broken in the sense I can't make a good and right decision for myself. But towards the end of the meditation, what came to me was, as I was releasing all that, was almost like this golden light around all of those seemingly wrong decisions, that I thought I made, and seeing them as really that magical part of my journey, like that they were all chosen experiences that I chose throughout the course of my life that have made me who I am, that have made me, that have created the experiences in the life that I have, of which I'm really proud, because I feel for so many of them, they've made me brave. They've made me a warrior in the sense. You don't always do everything perfectly, but you go in there and making the best decisions that you can. So it had such a nice twist for me at the end, because what felt like such a brokenness at the beginning really shifted for me to feeling like, oh, no, I own that. I made those decisions, and that made me who I am.
So there's a theme that's happening through all 3 of what you guys just shared, in that as kids, and those of you that have had kids, you know this really well, kids assume that, they are the center of their world, right? They are not in a sassy way, but they are egocentric. They assume that the world is sort of revolving around their needs and wants and desires and all of that. So when somebody does something or says something that feels like an attack, as kids, we assume they're attacking me. And that is the adult or the kid that they must know more than I do. And so something is wrong with me that I need to shift in order to get into the right place and be the right kind of person in order to have this thing that I want. Versus the rule of all, that is, it's not personal. So for Robin, those women didn't say that to you because they wanted to hurt you and they wanted to mess with your head. They truly believed, and we can have whatever judgment we want on this, but they truly believed that they were giving you information that you should know.
Yeah.
And Karen, those girls bullying you weren't bullying you because they were just waiting for Karen to show up so they could mess with you, right? You know all of this intellectually.
Yeah.
It just feels so deeply personal, especially at that age. And again, we don't have the tools as an adult to be like, wow, she's really messed up that she would tell me that I can't play with all those other children that are over there, just right there playing. Right? Like, what's up with that? Why wouldn't I be able to play? We have no tools, no skills to get into that level of the intellectual programming. And so it all feels like it's an attack on us. And we're so used to trusting the other people around us for survival, because we have been for all of our childhood. We have to. And so we assume that they know what's up on this one too. There's no way for us to know. She knows how to have me fed and keep me surviving by my basic needs, but she's a hot mess when it comes to emotional intelligence, right? No 5-year-old or 6-year-old has any way of discerning that. So we just take it all up as sponges. And from a very woo-woo spiritual side of it all, those are exactly the issues that we asked to come here to work through. Right? So whether you're working on the financial abundance or the body image or the relationship or whatever it is, it's because your soul chose here with these circumstances in order to unknot this specific issue. And this is just one way for us to be doing that. Doesn't that make so much sense?
And what you just said, in addition to helping release now, we get to release this. We also get to forgive. Like, I think what you just brought up allows me to forgive those women that said that to me.
Can you also forgive you?
Yes.
For programming the shitty
Oh,
thing in.
yes, that's
all
good. That's good.
That's
Yeah.
a bigger
You're
impact.
right, Lizzie. That's so true.
Yeah. Because
Yeah.
most of us forgive them.
You're
right?
right. You're
We
so
go into
right.
the whole like, I forgive. I just never like whatever, but we
No,
don't
you're
go to
right.
that next layer of, I also forgive me for not knowing better, not doing better.
1,000%. Yes.
So that's a big one.
Oh my
So those
goodness.
of you, whether you shared or didn't share, whatever's going on, you did it right. It's out, it's deleted. And now you might notice the next few days that memories kind of match up to it and pop up that you haven't thought of in years. And that's okay. So if you do remember things, great. If you don't, no big deal. It still worked. As they do come up, if they do come up, you really want to say, oh yeah, wow, I forgot about that. I'm so glad that's deleted and it's gone. Right? As you're telling people about what we've done here today, you want to put it in the past tense. I had a fear of being broken and we deleted it. I had a fear that I couldn't do these things and I had this double bind and I deleted it. Right? We don't want to program it back in. Really big piece.
And that forgiveness of yourself is huge. And, I remember learning that actually from a Jan Levanzant, for those who know who that is. And I remember being so surprised by that, like why we never think about that. So thank you for reminding all of us to do that, especially in this work, because in addition to deleting, the forgiveness of yourself or protecting yourself or using that as a protection is huge.
Yeah.
Well,
and
and also just thinking about the word broken and maybe in a different way, right? Like instead of using that as a term to describe yourself, using it as a reminder that you came here to learn that. So you don't have to embrace that as a defect in yourself in some way. It can actually be something that's helping you grow.
I've noticed there's a lot coming up with my clients lately about wanting to be done, right? Like, when am I done? There's always something that comes up. And I have felt that way too, and doing all this work for so many years. Like, when am I done? And I think, as all of the people that have been on your podcast would say, when we're done, we go back to source, right? The fun of being in a human body is going through all the physical and emotional and different manifestations of it and really experiencing it and soaking it up. So remember that this isn't about, okay, because when I first started this work, I kept thinking I must be broken because these things aren't coming into alignment. And if I weren't broken, this wouldn't be happening. So I just need to find someone who can fix me and fix whatever's broken in my head. And then I'll be in alignment and I'll manifest all these things that I wanted. And what I realized was I was never broken in the first place. This was just my path and just my journey of what to work on, which changed my whole come from and my whole way I approached all of this work to it being a little lighter, a little more enjoyable, and just letting the journey unfold instead of thinking there was like a finish line.
Really good. That's really good. Does anyone else want to share? We have a few minutes left. You could just put it in the chat if you don't want to talk. I'll give you a minute with Lizzie to have her help
Happy
you.
to powwow with you guys. And as you're typing that in the chat, or feel free to raise your hand if you want to just come on and share. When we do these edits, you're clearing a lot of stuff out. So you want to make sure you're drinking at least 2 liters of water a day for the next few days. If you wake up with a headache, it's because you're dehydrated. So like a Nalgene is 1 liter. How do I get that in thing? You want to drink probably 2 of those. And you can reach out if you're feeling any other side effects or you want to share. And Denise, go ahead and jump in. Let us know what you're feeling or thinking.
So I was actually quite surprised by the exercise. It took me right back to being in utero and my mom's 15-year-old body. and all of her emotions of not wanting me and looking at giving me up for adoption and just her feeling of brokenness and mistakes and loneliness. And her mom also passed away while she was pregnant with me too. So there was like a lot going on in her life. And I felt all of that. And I feel like it created the DNA of who I am today. And I took all of those experiences, and I'm a Christian, and I laid it at the cross. And I said, you know, be careful with this because I love this. This is part of me. And it's a big sacrifice for me to hand it over, but it's yours now. And I'm not going to take it back onto myself. And when I did that, I felt a lump in my throat and I felt my heart beating faster, like I was grieving a part of me. But also at the same time, I was fighting myself with self-talk of like, you could do this, you got this, you've been through worse, you've come through so much. And it was just an inner battle of grief and trying to pump myself up like a cheerleader or something. But it was just all sorts of things going on inside of me. So I really appreciated this exercise. I've never experienced this exercise before. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. That's such a beautiful way for you to walk us through all of that. Really incredible. And we know for sure, like they've studied and they know for sure that babies in utero are absorbing the hormones from mom.
Yeah.
You're totally soaking all of that up.
And then see, Issy has a question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Issy. Issy wrote, how do I let go of the things and feelings of being stuck? Is it just by forgiving the people in my past who made me hold on to the insecurities, etc.? So that's a big question. How do I let go of the things and feelings of being stuck? So again, if we're pushing on both sides of the door, it's going to create the stuckness. So the first thing that we want to do in the modality that I work with is digging into the why. Why is it there and what is it? So you are used to the frequency of stuckness, that feeling of like something is just on the tip of my tongue. I know I'm just about there. That feeling, you're used to that vibration. And we want to know why. Why is it coming up? Why is it triggering? How is it serving you? Because there's something where the universe is saying yes to both of those things, where both sides of the coin are sending out a stress signal. And once we get to those, then we can start deleting them. As far as feeling stuck in being broken, spend the next few days kind of paying attention to, yes, forgiving the people in your past and forgiving yourself. And really going through the story. It might feel really interesting to go through the story of what I think they did to me. And did they do it intentionally to screw me up? Like, was their intention really, we're going to mess with her on this one? And if it is, forgive them. And if it wasn't, forgive them, right? But just for you to sort of have your own clarity as an adult looking back at those situations that came up in there, pay attention to what those are. I think it's much more important to forgive yourself. So if there's any way that we can help you there, and it might be going a little bit deeper in these, we can go in there.
Great.
I'm so grateful for everyone today for sharing and being vulnerable, really, because that's what makes these sessions together so impactful. And really, they help all of us heal and move forward, which is the whole goal of why we're doing them. And Lizzi, thank you so much for guiding us through all of it and really for creating this process for releasing, because it is life-changing. It is life-changing.
It is.
Well, thank you guys for having me here and for creating the space. And I just want you to know, so the work that I do is not in lieu of therapy. And it's similar, but very different in the sense that, yes, we are digging out all the stuff that may have come up in childhood, not in order to sort of process it and figure out the players. And, like therapy to me was incredibly impactful and helpful in understanding my childhood and understanding my family members and the dynamics and all of that. this was the work that really helped me change what I was doing moving forward. Eileen, thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
So it was more about once I, like I knew that I loved a narcissist and I understood why, but it didn't make me stop loving a narcissist until I started doing this work and started getting my vibration different. And then it changed. Thank you, Carolyn.
That's important. That's important. And I know people have to go. We just want to tell everyone we're going to be doing this again in August on Friday, August 18th at the same time, which is 2 p.m. Eastern time. And we're going to be tackling the fear of being content, which I'm sure sounds strange to some, but we're going to go there and we'll explain more about that on August 18th. And I don't know if you want to say anything else about that, Lizzie.
So fear of being content, think about your double bind here. You are longing for it. You are longing for that like sustained, easy contentment. And what is the fear once you have it? And that's what we're going to dive into. The double bind.
Because this is the one that I brought up, because this is all I want to feel these days is content. So
Yes. So we're going to dig in there.
Yeah.
And for anyone who would like to reach out to Lizzie, you can go to LizziCutler.com, LizziCutler.com, and you can find out how to reach out to her one-on-one, as well as any of her upcoming programs prior to August 18th. So thank you all for being here and for watching. If you're watching this, if you're watching the recording, we're so grateful and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lizzie.